the world's biggest exporter of meat and soy. One of the top sellers of coffee, sugar, corn, orange, rice. Its territory is the 5th largest on the planet. Brazil feeds more than 1 billion people worldwide. But hunger remains an unsolved problem in the country.
Roughly, we had around 20 million Brazilians that had food insecurity before the pandemic. So that's roughly 10% of the population. And with the pandemic, that number almost doubled of the Brazilian
La
population.
Sanches, a professor of operations and logistics at Insecurity, believes vulnerable families living in slums and small rural producers have to connect to alleviate the food insecurity of millions of Brazilians. Family farmers produce 23% of the gross domestic agricultural product, and they are responsible for most of the food consumed in the country. Insper created a project called Campo Favela, or Countryside Slum in English, to link them both.
We helped around more than 80,000 families. We deliver more than 700 tons of food, of fresh food. And we helped more than 1,500 small farmers.
The project receives financial support from companies and wealthy families. The food is donated to the community associations in the slums.
In terms of money, if we translate this to dollars, the amount is not so big. But in terms of purchase power here in Brazil, that's a lot of money. So we are talking about roughly around $600,000.
Take Cidade Tiradentes as an example, one of the largest housing complexes in Latin America. The district, located in the outskirts of São Paulo, is home to approximately 300,000 people, and it's been deeply affected by the economic downturn induced by the pandemic.
Eu pensei que o mundo ia acabar, eu larguei o meu negócio, porque eu trabalhava com evento, trabalhava com assessoria de imprensa, e no final, acabei vendendo banana e ovo. Olá!
Rubia always dreamed of bringing businesses to Cidade Tiradentes, and immediately after coronavirus arrived in Brazil, she got involved with the Countryside Slum project.
E a partir desse momento, a gente começou a receber mais ou menos 500 cestas por semana.
Half of the baskets she received every week were donated to families and institutions. The other half, Rubia would sell for a low price.
Naquele momento a cesta valia R$55, a gente vendia a 12 e esses R$12 a gente pagava o almoço, as pessoas, descarregava e dava ainda uma ajuda de custo de mais ou menos R$50. Vai sair mais média hoje.
In June, Rubia launched her own project following the Countryside Slum model. Nowadays, once or twice a week, she pays a visit to Valério, a small farmer who produces all kinds of vegetables.
Conheci ela um tempo atrás, já veio comprar, né, para casa, né? Aí depois ela veio ver a mercadoria, viu que tá bonita. Aí veio ver, viu os preços também, o preço bom, né? Aí ela falou assim, a gente dá para vender. Eu falei, não, nós tiver aqui, nós vende. Então foi a sorte que ela tá comprando bastante.
Valério used to sell his green produce to small markets in the vicinity. COVID-19 hit his business hard.
No começo foi pior, viu? Porque aí pararam de comprar, né? A gente perdeu uns 50% nos primeiros meses. A gente não perdeu porque a gente doou. Doou para muita associação, vinha aí. Ah, tá sobrando aí, seu Valério. Ah, tem sim, pode levar. Então a gente doava.
Despite the difficult times, Valério hasn't raised his prices, but the bills are piling up.
A gente não pode passar, né, o custo a mais, que não encarece muito, né? Conta de luz vem alta e a gente paga o aluguel do terreno. Mas se a gente passar o preço a mais para quem compra, ele não vai vir aqui também comprar. Aí deu problema na caixa de direção.
Valerio shows us his only tractor.
Aqui a peça está quebrada é essa.
It's been sitting here for 3
O
months,
volante é essa parte aqui.
broken. He gets emotional while telling us he cannot fix it, much less afford a new one. The government line of support for small farmers never arrived around here. When Valerio needs the equipment, he rents by the hour. By the time he pays for the rent, utility bills, supplies, and now the tractor rental, there is nothing left.
Porque a plantação é uma coisa que não dá muito lucro. Tem que investir muito, mas a parte só dá para sobreviver.
Que a gente está falando.
Fernando Schwanke, Brazil's Secretary of Family Agriculture, says the resources are available to them.
O que pode ter é problema de acesso ao crédito. Né? E o acesso ao crédito depende muito individualmente de produtor para produtor. Muitos dos agricultores que não têm os títulos de terra, obviamente, eles têm dificuldade de acessar os recursos de crédito e começam a ficar à margem da produção primária.
Valerio gets help from Rubia, who in turn helps feed her community. With a truck full with fresh and healthy produce, Rubia and her partners go back to Cidade Tiradentes, just 20 minutes away.
Já saiu 5 pedidos já.
Back in the office, Rubia notifies the customers and prepares the baskets, which are delivered using a motorcycle service. The prices are the lowest you could ever get because she is the only link between the suppliers and the customers. She gets help from a small team, mostly family.
Boa tarde, tudo bem?
Abigail purchases Rubia's fresh produce every week.
Agora, ultimamente, com a pandemia, né, as coisas fez. Por exemplo, na feira, esse alface é R$3. Essa couve é R$3. Aqui tudo é R$3. Cebola tá um absurdo. Somando tudo, dá bem mais de R$20.
She paid close to $4 for this basket and saved $2.
That's a great output that we always wanted. This supply chain usually has many stages, intermediaries, that not always they create value. So the idea is, okay, if we create a new supply chain with less intermediaries, we can, for example, reduce the waste.
Approximately 30% of fruits and vegetables are lost in one of the supply chain stages, either on the farm, at the warehouse, or during distribution.
If we are able to create a better supply chain with less waste, we can not only reduce the cost of the products, but also we can improve the environment. What Rubia is doing is totally one of our goals, and we cheer for her.
30 miles away, on the other side of the city, we arrive in Brasilândia, one of the biggest slums of São Paulo. Here, where people live packed together, unemployment and death are all around.
A Brasilândia é dos territórios de maiores casos de Covid confirmados, né? E de morte total. A gente tava batendo ranking, assim. Eu não sei como está agora, né?
Every Saturday, Beatriz drives around Brasilândia distributing fresh food to the most vulnerable residents.
Até gente que a gente entregava. Tipo, não, chamar fulano em casa. Não tá mais. Morreu semana passada. E é complicado, né? A gente fica, poxa, você vê a coisa ali acontecendo de perto, né?
Dona Joana!
But Beatriz, who's known here as the basket girl, is not discouraged. All the produce she hands out is donated, benefiting roughly 180 families.
Cosmeirinha!
The government distributes financial assistance to millions of people who lost their income due to the pandemic, but that doesn't cover the full cost of basic necessities.
No.
Gabriele tells us she wouldn't be able to afford the items she receives for free.
É uma coisa a menos pra gente gastar, tá ajudando muito mesmo.
Tá sendo bem interessante, importante pra gente, né? Ainda mais agora na época da pandemia, tá muito difícil.
Até que enfim, né? Lembraram da Brasilândia, porque aqui é um lugar esquecido.
Tomatoes, kale, cauliflower, all organic, and some come with recipes so people can learn how to cook vegetables they never had before.
Antes da pandemia, as pessoas têm o costume de comprar o básico, arroz, feijão e uma carne em casa. Então não tinham o costume de comer verdura, legumes, esses alimentos mais saudáveis, né? E aí, com a pandemia também é bom a gente comer isso para fortalecer a imunidade.
Beatriz has asthma and bronchitis. COVID, in her case, could very well be fatal.
Tem. Eu sou de risco ainda, né? Não é um momento ótimo por conta da pandemia, mas assim, eu me sinto bem de estar fazendo o melhor pro meu bairro. Eu quero que eu evolua.
So let's see where all the food comes from. 45 miles north of Brasilândia, we arrive at a settlement of small farmers. Together they have everything, and all the produce is 100% organic.
Hello, my name is Bianca, Julia, Flávia, Beatriz. My name is Julia.
This group built a project named Pertinho, which in Portuguese means to be really close to someone. While the world needs distance to fight the virus, they go against the current, building connections.
We are basically a group of people which are bringing free organic food to poor communities, and we are planting at communities like slum-like communities.
At Pertinho, the rich pay for the poor. They call the donated baskets Robin Hood.
Some donors, actually, they're buying these baskets which we sell to help to finance the project. So these are people in the city, in São Paulo and Jundiaí. And we have a very, very vast network of people which are helping us and donating money through social media, basically.
Not all the 8 members of Pertinho are farmers, but they all share the same idea of valuing organic foods and restorative agriculture.
We want to talk about food. Do you know what you eat? Do you know what's in your rice? Do you know why it costs that much? Why are we so oblivious to such important matters?
They post videos on social media where they talk about their vegetables.
Most videos I'm showing different vegetables. So for example, if you go to a normal supermarket in Brazil, you would find maybe 2, maybe 3 kinds of tomatoes. There are thousands, literally thousands of tomatoes out there, and we could be eating all of them.
Descobri também.
We see ourselves also as a sort of education project. When it comes to farming, there's a big gap between the countryside where farmers are living and the big cities. And it's sometimes actually quite big and people just don't understand it. They don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand how hard it is to grow food. They don't understand that just for one piece of lettuce, it takes 2 months. It is a long time.
They also help this feminist community called Menino Chorão, or Crying Baby in English. The women in this communal house are victims of domestic violence. Carmen Souza, the leader of the group, met Pertinho's volunteers because she was desperate for help.
O meu povo ia morrer de fome se eu não fosse pedir ajuda. Aí eu tive que pedir, porque você mesmo tá com fome e pedir a alguém é difícil, você não tem coragem. Então, para uma pessoa de fora pedir é mais fácil.
Pertinho teaches the women to become independent by maintaining their own garden and even profiting from it.
Daqui a um ano a gente vai ter muita coisa para colher. Se em menos de um ano a gente colheu bastante coisa junto, né? Como a abobrinha, o brócolis, o girassol, né? Até vendeu, né? Para a cesta que a Pertinho vende, até a gente já vendeu também. Então já foi um grande lucro, né? Foi uma grande vitória que a gente nunca tinha vendido nenhum pé de coentro.
They plant, they weigh, they pack, they sell, they give, they teach. But now they need help too.
So yeah, we all started as volunteers, and actually so far it's been 6 months of work. We're all volunteers. We actually wake up at 5 in the morning and work until like 9 or 10 in the evening, pretty much every day. Weekends we go to the communities to plant. In these 6 months, we haven't made any profit from the project. It all goes to pay the bills.
Olha só, tá maravilhosa aqui onde eu tô.
They launched a crowdfunding campaign to finance their salaries, but that wasn't enough to keep their project running. After 7 months of hard work and more than 32 tons of food distribution, they are now exclusively focusing their time on helping the Menino Chorão community garden.
Essa parte aqui cortar.
Julia is concerned with the financial health of the small farmers who help them throughout this time.
6 months ago, we were so worried, and it was a novelty, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But bankruptcy is happening now. Restaurants are closing now because they were able to sustain for a 6-month period. But now they aren't. Spring just came in. This is like one of the most anticipated times of the year because now it's when it's going to rain and we're going to be able to plant. But they don't have the money to do it.
A agricultura brasileira foi o setor menos afetado da pandemia. A gente teve o setor de indústria e serviços que foram extremamente afetados.
Even before the pandemic, the health of Brazil's economy wasn't good. The country had just ended a 3-year recession from 2014 to 2016, followed by 3 years of meager growth. And then the COVID-19 crisis struck.
As with any other...
Economist Paulo Pichetti says the fiscal side of Brazil's economy was severely hit by the pandemic, which increased investors' perception of risk.
And as a result, many foreign investments took their resources out of the country, and even residents, they seek shelter in foreign assets.
The devaluation of Brazil's currency made the country's agricultural exports attractive to the international market. It discouraged the dollar-dominated imports and fueled internal demands for domestically produced agricultural items.
People were quarantining in their homes. They had nowhere to go, nowhere to spend their income. They started cooking at home, so the demand for agricultural products rose as a consequence. Since there was not a problem in the supply side, the agricultural sector thrived during the pandemic.
It also provoked a spike in food prices in the domestic market.
That happens everywhere in the world.
Guilherme Bastos, president of Brazil's national supply company, says that stocking food to regulate prices is very costly.
Brazil today consumes approximately 150 million tons of grains. So in order to do a strategic program of handling stocks, if you save 20% of that, that would be a huge amount of grains. And a huge amount of buying the grains and then keeping that grains under public control, ownership.
The UN's World Food Programme estimates that the number of people experiencing severe food insecurity in the Caribbean and Latin America will increase from 3.4 million to over 13 million throughout 2020. It's not yet clear whether Brazil's efforts to minimize the food insecurity of more than 30 million will be sufficient to keep the country out of the hunger map.
A fome é muito triste. Só quem passou fome na vida sabe o que é a fome. Você com fome, você não tem ação, você não tem ânimo, você se sente um ninguém.